Start recording. Okay, this is Bruce Mandel. I've started the recording session, and good afternoon. Welcome to the Madaket Area Plan Work Group meeting. I'm Bruce Mandel. I'm the chairperson of the work group, and I'm calling the meeting to order. This open meeting of the Madaket Area Plan Work Group is being conducted remotely in a Zoom format in accordance with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. The recording of the meeting will be available for viewing on the town's YouTube channel. This meeting is being transcribed using the town's AI companion. Minutes will be prepared. All attendees are participating in a video conference. I'll now conduct a roll call. So please just answer here if I call your name and you're here. Ethan Devine, not here. Tom Erickson, not here. Wait a minute. And someone asked you to start the meeting summary. Oh, start the meeting summary. Okay, the AR is in gear. This is the Madaket Area Plan Work Group meeting of August, whatever date it is, the 8th. I'm running down the list of members to establish quorum. Leslie Forbes, no. Peter Heffenreffer,
Here.
thank you. JP Hernandez,
Present.
thank you. David Madigan,
Here.
Bruce Mandel's here. Michael Maynard is at Nantucket Cottage Hospital. Lars Soderberg,
Here.
Joseph Topham.
Here.
Okay, and now we'll go to the ad hoc people. Jesse Bell is not here. Kitty Pockman is not here. Cormac Collier and Emily Molden are not here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have a quorum, so the meeting is official. Thank you for participating. All Zoom participants are asked to mute their devices unless they're addressing the committee. There are no members of the public shown as zooming into the meeting. Members of the public, if they were here, would be asked to identify themselves like that. Okay, so we've got a quorum. Thank you. I can put that away. And the first order of business is just to approve this meeting's agenda, which I hope you all have a copy of. All those in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by raising your hand, except for
Aye.
David and JP. Okay,
Aye.
we got that done. Thank
Aye.
you. I believe Leslie distributed the minutes from June. So does anybody object to those draft minutes? Please raise your hand if you don't like them. Okay, we're good to go. The next item on the agenda is something that I talked to Megan Trudell about as part of the meeting with her. And we'll get into that in a second, but Chapter 1 is basically called Goals and Policies. And it seems that it's asking for each chapter to come up with goals and policies and then proceed from there. My view is that we should consolidate all of that in Chapter 1, which is goals and policies, and let each chapter build on that. I had an interesting conversation, and I heard Malcolm McNabb make a very pointed comment when the Board of Health met with the Select Board recently. Malcolm spent 20 years on the Board of Health, including being the Select Board member that was part of the Board of Health. More and more regulations on Nantucket are being formulated and passing the enforcement requirement onto the Board of Health, which is kind of overburdening their staff because they don't have a big staff, they need more, and most of the people on their staff are basically trained in Board of Health issues. not issues on other subjects such as housing, other than inspecting short-term rental properties and things like that. So Malcolm was quite intense on speaking about this. He probably spoke for 10 or 15 minutes on it. The bottom line is and it stuck with me, he said, if you have a policy, you need a law or a bylaw in order to have it take effect. You can't enforce a policy that doesn't have legal standing with a bylaw or a law. And if you have a bylaw and a law, there has to be an enforcement mechanism. And his point was the Board of Health cannot function as the enforcement entity for non-health related issues. And he said the Board of Health cannot and will not enforce any policy that doesn't have a law or a bylaw with it, with an enforcement mechanism that involves the Board of Health. And if it's not health related, we will not be involved with it. We will not enforce it. We will not investigate it. No one on the select board disagreed with him. And my point is, we can develop all kinds of policies, but there's no way for us to enforce them. But we can set goals that other entities like the HTC and the Concom can help us with if they see that we have goals for Madaket. So my point is, if you're writing your chapter and you want to make a policy, if we've got a bylaw somewhere in the code of the town of Nantucket, let's put it in your chapter as a policy. Otherwise, let's express it as a meaningful goal. Does anybody want to talk about that or have any suggestions? Okay, yes,
Sure.
Peter.
How would you find the policy, Bruce? How would I, as a layperson, find a policy throughout all of the recommendations that I've made in my chapters?
I think what we're aiming at is that if you come up with a policy rather than a goal, and the essence is the policy is backed up by a bylaw, and the
Understood that.
goal is, excuse me?
I understand that, but what that tells me is that I should take out all the policies in my chapters. Because I don't, if we're trying to wrap this thing up by October, I don't know how I go about doing that to get.
Well, let's think about that. If you
And I
got a
may not
list of,
have any policies. I'm not quite sure.
well, you did have
Oh,
some, and I thought they would make good goals. So I think it's not that difficult to convert a policy into an objective or a goal. Because if it doesn't have a law or a bylaw to give it teeth, what's the point? So if you want to make a policy that you can't park on the left side of the street on Wednesdays, we just say, we have a goal of not allowing parking on Wednesdays on this side of the street. And we explain why. And go on from there. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Lars, you raised your hand.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. I think you're onto something. I think, we certainly aren't going to be, I don't have the wherewithal to scour laws and regulations. But I'll look at the chapter I finished, obviously Peter will as well. And I think our mission is to raise both broad and perhaps finite issues and make recommendations as what we'd like. I mean, we don't even know if the town's going to accept the area plan. So I think there's a limit to how deep we're going to drill into here. So if someone knows there's a law or regulation, fine, cite it. But I mean, I do parking and circulation and transportation. I made and am making. I'm not saying we should eliminate parking in current public parking areas, but I am saying, there's congestion and problems, resident, and that we have to address those. And I offer a few solutions, but I think, in order to be effective here, I think we have to do what you just said, goals backed up by whatever we have. And, I'm using the word recommendations, but we can use any term you want. These are the issues we see. Here are our recommendations that we support, and here are the recommendations on changes we want. So I'll pause there, but I think that, I don't think we're going to be able to dive in deep enough to figure out laws and regulations, but we can certainly make our case for what we want. If our plan is actually approved, I'm under the impression that then there'll be an ability, to work on any of these things with somebody to try to fix parking on F Street and Tennessee Avenue corner, as an example.
Uh-huh. Well, that's interesting too. I think you're right about making recommendations. As far as the code, is there a code or a bylaw that deals with one of your recommendations? It's not that hard, at least for me, to get through the code of the town of Nantucket to look for something specific. There's a nice little search engine that is very helpful, and I'm happy to help any chapter do that research quickly. And if we can find a law, a bylaw, or something like that, I think that would be very helpful. The other point is, one of the goals, I think, that we should have for the Madaket area plan is something that the HDC asked for. They asked Madaket to come up with a document similar to building with Sconset in mind. And they said, several of the commission said, because I guess I'm a little too vocal about Madaket applications and things like that, and the ZBA with pools, they said it would be very helpful if Madaket had a document that we could hold on to while we're reviewing an application and tell an applicant that you need to revise something on your application because it's going counter to what the citizens of Madaket want to say. This is what we want our community to look like and what we want the density to be. And it's in writing, and it's part of the Nantucket master plan. So they actually asked for something like that. And I think we can use your recommendations idea to help build that. Catherine Slatterly offered to do the building with Madaket in mind. But until she does that, I think the area plan will have to serve that purpose, as long as it's accepted.
I think, unless I'm missing something, I think it's two separate issues. What does what's the HDC have to do with our map plan? And I'm not saying that snidely. I'm just saying, I think building with Madaket in mind is that would be great. But in my mind, that's zoning. And part of, when Michael Spin doesn't have a hurt head, I know that's his chapter. And we've had some discussions on this. I don't want to, we can't have a building with Madaket in mind aspiration and finish that in time to finish the map thing. So we have to figure out how to dovetail that, is what I guess I'm getting at. And in my mind, it's fine if we come up another day for something for the HDC. But I would rather see us have zoning recommendations. I don't think we can tackle all of zoning, but this is what we would like to see happen with zoning is, simplified, come up with whatever phrasing. I'm not a zoning attorney, but I don't think we're going to be able to dive in and change the zoning yet, but I think we aspirationally say we need to simplify and coordinate zoning changes in Madaket and see what kind of a response that gets from the map. They might say we're nuts, we're not accepting that, or they might, whoever reviews this might say great idea. Now let's figure out zoning. So I don't know, that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, and
No,
we'll
but
just,
that's-
if I
but-
can,
but-
I'll try to pile on and say that this is JP, just say that I by and large agree with what Lars is saying there. I don't think I have much to add. I think we're going to densify this thing more than we need to, get more bogged down in an endeavor that's already a little behind, and we're feeling like we need to sort of scurry to the finish line. I think there's an opportunity to do this sort of like Lars said, sort of like footnotes or something, and maybe it sort of allows us to do a little bit more and stretch aspirationally along the lines that Bruce is talking about to achieve a little bit more vis-a-vis, you know, some of the points that the select board member made. But I really don't think we're gonna find ourselves successful in moving at the speed we need to if we allow ourselves to get into this too much.
And to jump on that, I think that goes back to something Bruce started with, like the bike pass. You know, that was like, hey, you know, we have e-bikes, etc. And then, you know, say we're at that point now where, you know, Bruce was just making a recommendation to go to town meeting. Well, I think to have that in there where we think that there should be this in Madaket, it's not quite a law, but at the same time, I just got approved the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. So I think we have something in there, and then we kind of work on to go to the committee and go to BPAC and say, hey, we got an issue with parking and traffic. And I think we have agendas, and then we need to move forward. And then the other thing, there's a great web page that's called E360 of the town. So you can go look at stuff and kind of get, you know, I found this, and then go to board or whatever and say, is this correct or why not? And I think it's a really way to check the boxes and make sure we're going the right direction. But I don't think we have that answer. Then I think that we aspirationally, as you know, as JP was just saying, that we have that in place, and this is what we want to do. And secondly, or lastly, this is a living document. And so I think if there is a, you know, a year or 2 years from now, we get the Madaket, you know, building with Madaket in mind, then we offer that up and we give that, and then we give this to the Plus department, and that goes to Judy Parrott and her group, and that becomes part of the document. Whether she brings it in at that time or a later date when she's got other information, but the whole policy of my understanding of the master plan now is that it's going to be a living document, and more information comes up. And you know, I've even asked her, like, make a Dewey Decimal System for all this information, because so when she goes in there, she can find something. And because as she said, it doesn't look like the town is doing anything, but there is a lot of paperwork showing progress in the direction it's going. Then all of a sudden it hits, and this all of a sudden, you know, there's water fountains in Madaket and et cetera, and there's beautiful stuff going on, but it just takes time for the town to get to that. So I think that if it's not a code issue, then I definitely think we should leave it as a aspirational, or this is our intention, or this is what we'd like to do, and then just work on it, you know, once we submit this. So that's my.
No, that's good thought. JD's name was highlighted in green, so I'm assuming he was the one speaking. So that's a good point. And to Laura's point, you know, what can we help the HTC with? I'll give you just one quick example. The HTC only deals with what can be seen from a public way or a neighbor's house on a butter. And one of the things that has been asked for is, hey, if you're going to put a pool in, we want to have some screening of some kind of mature planting, something, so everybody doesn't be looking into the pool and all the activities you're doing. And the HDC basically says, we can't deal with that because pools are a special permit through the ZBA. But as far as the screening that's visible from the public way, we can impose that on the applicant. That's
Yeah,
the kind of thing they were looking for.
Yeah, and they say into perpetuity. So that's a, you know, boilerplate, you know,
Yeah.
comment they say every time, into perpetuity.
Exactly. So these are good points. I think that as far as goals and policy, perhaps we should be dealing, as Lars recommended, with goals and recommendations based upon what we feel those goals, how they apply to that chapter of the area plan. So let's pursue it that way. Okay. Anybody else want to talk about policies and goals, or should I move on to my discussion with Megan?
Let me just quickly say, I just looked back at my chapter 5. Every single section is a policy, is set up as a policy.
Well, that's because that's you named it that. We'll change the name.
Yeah, no. So I'll go back and edit that, make sure that it's not unclear what we're actually trying to say.
Oh, thank you for doing that. Yeah, we're gonna have to vet all of these things out.
Yeah.
Megan called and wanted to have a meeting with the Madaket area plan, and several people expressed interest in coming along to the meeting. And I bounced it off Megan, and she kind of felt that it could get out of hand. She just wanted to spend about an hour and a half on it. She didn't want to make it a big discussion back and forth. She just wanted an update as to where we are and when we're going to finish, like what Lars said. The the main tone was that the area plans are a very valuable component of the Nantucket Master Plan, and they are charged with updating the master plan sometime later this year or early next year. And it's a difficult process. And most of the area plans have been accepted and sifted through, except for one or two, one of which is Madaket. So her interest is, how are you doing? What can we do to expedite this? And I told her, I think I shared with you a document, but we went over some of the background here, and I'm just going to follow my notes here. And I explained how we made a transition from Diana running the show, and then she didn't have time anymore, and we transitioned to Bruce. But I went back and went through all of the, I call them topic injections. These are the topics we want Madaket to address. And of course, we have the state document that you all have, listing chapter by chapter, things that the state says every area plan in the state, all over the state, has to at least have these topics covered. Well, on top of that, we have several other topic driving items, and I just want to go over them real quickly so you understand. As I said, there's the one-page state document, looks kind of like this. Then we have, unfortunately, a review in 2004 of our existing area plan, and it was done by planning department. And they listed a couple of bullet points in each chapter, and they made comments here. Some of these comments were absorbed into the old area plan, but most of them are, you're going to have to work on these. So I use this to filter out for each chapter. I put it in that topics list, and I wrote it in red. Okay. Oh no, it was in, yeah, it was red. Then we have in 2020, there was a very important meeting with Andrew Vorse. October 13th. And he followed chapter by chapter things that he felt needed to be incorporated. So I used those in building the topics list. And as an overarching thing, he made two broad statements. He said, the existing Madaket area plan has a boundary in it. It's no longer representative of what the Madaket community is like. You need to amend the boundary if you want to have an effective area plan for the entire Madaket community. So, but he did say, planning's not going to help you with that. You got to figure it out. You got to present it, and you've got to have survey documents saying that this is basically what the community wants. That was part of the driving influence of why we did all those surveys. He also said that the zoning needs to be addressed. It's old. It's out of date. There's too many zoning pieces coming together. Says you need to update your zoning if you want to control the growth and density of Madaket. But he said planning will not do that for you. He says you have to come up with what you want the zoning to look like in Madaket now that it's grown up, or it's not going to happen and you're not going to be able to use your area plan for the intended purpose of trying to control density and growth. So those were three things that I took into consideration in building the topics list. And, just remember, I was not in the area plan group in 2020. But when I found the document, it lists chapter by chapter, and I can share this with you if you don't have it, chapter by chapter, the topics he says, this is what needs to be there in addition to the state and whatever else you come up with in your investigation. Okay, so we got that. Then a year later in 2011, the Madaket Conservation Association built a document of objectives for the use of the project fund, and they used the area plan chapters 1 through 9 as saying, this is what the Madaket Conservation Association views as important to include. And that, my document here I found in the files from Diana is dated June 9th, 2011. So I used that to help build the topics list. And this was a big job. Then in 2022, as we were preparing the surveys, somebody came up with a list again, chapter by chapter, and I compared the topics to these other documents, and any of the chapter topics that weren't included in those 4 or 5 documents I already mentioned, I added to the topics list. Doesn't mean you have to cover them, but these are the different entities that say, this is what the area plan should consider. And then lastly, we have a meeting of the Madaket Conservation Association Board of Directors. This is different from their project fund. Again, chapter by chapter, 1 page, these are the items that you need to include. And we built the survey using these documents. And I'm sure there are other documents, but I wanted to explain to you that part of my discussion with Megan. She asked about the review of the topics list. She wants to be able to attend our monthly meetings. And I said, I didn't see anything wrong with that. I mean, anybody can. We have a public comment period. So we would encourage that because you could have some good input. She said, I explained to her what we're using the Google Drive for, chapter by chapter, back and forth. She said, well, that's a good idea. Can you give me access to your Google folder? And I said, there's 3 levels of participation: editor, commenter, and just viewer. I said, I'll ask the committee, but I see nothing wrong with you being a commenter. The editors are the chapter people. They're the ones that are building the area plan. If you got a comment, we'd welcome it. And certainly just to be a viewer is helpful, but it puts an extra layer of delay. So I don't see anything wrong with that unless you guys have some concern about that. Let me know.
And what does she want her impact to be?
Her participation?
Yeah, what is she trying to do?
I
Why is
think
she-
she's trying to speed the process up so that if she's, for example, if I'm writing a chapter, goals and policy, and I put a draft up there, I think she wants to be able to read it and make a comment. Hey, Bruce, did you think of this or that? I think that's all she wants to do. Or
Okay.
she wants to be able to say, and she actually said this in the meeting because I talked about zoning and Andrew Vorse's direction that we would have to build the zoning change amendment. She said, there's a state process for changing zoning. And you can't just willy-nilly change zoning because you had a vote in your committee or you had a community meeting or a survey. There's an official process and you have to follow it. So that's a useful comment that I was not aware of. So I think her participation there could be valuable. And of course, she said, when are you going to be finished? Lars's question. And I said, well, we've been working very diligently, and I think we could be finished in the next 6 or 7 months, maybe toward the end of the year or the beginning of next year. And she goes, well, what are your constraints? I said, the biggest constraint in my view is town administration. And just, guys, let me say this. The town is divided into two pieces. There's administration and there's NP and EDC. And never the twain shall meet until it works its way up to the select board. Libby controls the administrative side. And Leslie Snell and her board of directors control the NPED side. And the NPED side includes the building department. It includes the HTC. So it's a complicated thing. The point is, she said, you know, what are your constraints? I said, administration gives us 1 hour Zoom every month. And it's Friday afternoon and it's into happy hour. And she said, well, you know, the planning department now has a Zoom channel and it's pretty much wide open. Why don't you use our Zoom for a second meeting, either as a whole area plan work group or to help move your chapters along? We could slot an hour, hour and a half for somebody who's a chapter chairperson to have a Zoom meeting with just his committee members. I said, well, that's a good idea. Let me bounce it off the group. And that's why I put out the doodle invite. And we got 7 responses. And basically the best day is Tuesday from 3 to 4. That's the number one where most people can participate. 7 respondents out of the 8 said, we can do 3 to 4 on Tuesdays. The next 2 choices, the next choices that had 6 responses that said we can work it out, is again Tuesday from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3. And we had 6 responses Monday, 2 to 3. So we've got to build on that if you want to use the planning department Zoom. If you don't, we're stuck with Fridays at 4 o'clock once a month. And when I mentioned this to the administration people with their Zoom, they said, well, we're kind of full. We have 3 channels and there's not very many open slots. Tell me what you want and maybe I can figure something out. Well, I thought that the flexibility was better with what Megan offered. So that's why I sent the doodle out. And those are the results. My view is to accept the offer and to use it for the sub-chapter work groups. And we can use the regular once a month meeting to cover the big housekeeping umbrella that covers all the chapters. So that's my suggestion. Any comments?
Agree.
Go ahead, David.
No, I agree. I agree. Use it for the subgroups and get on and let's use it.
Okay. Thank you. I agree with that too. Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I would only
Peter?
say, make sure that the subcommittee heads are on your list of people that responded. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. The people that responded, I have no problem telling you who they are. Of course, me,
Just make sure that the ones that
they
you
will.
you have like 5 people that are heading up chapters.
Exactly.
Make sure that they're on that group so that if you assign one of them to their subcommittee,
They
that
basically are. All the chapter chairs are in here.
Okay.
Lars,
And
Ethan,
I'm
you, me, David. So I
and
think we can
I'm from
handle
the 23rd to the 28th or 29th. I'm going to be in the boonies of Virginia, so I will not be available.
I use those dates as examples. I told him, I picked that week,
Okay.
September, whatever it was, and I said, ignore the date. What I'm looking for is the day of the week and the time in
Okay.
any month.
Okay.
Okay.
That's good. Yeah.
So
yeah, that
if
was
you
fine.
want to doodle in, that would be good.
I did doodle in, but I gave one recommendation. Sorry.
Okay, I gotta look in because I didn't see, Doodle didn't have you listed, but I'll look again. Okay, so that's an update on my conversation with Megan. A review of our list of topics, the survey routine input, how'd we do that? She wants to attend the meeting. She offered a Zoom slot for us. She wants access to the Google folder if we can do it. And she's offering a second Zoom session.
Bruce,
Yes.
can I make a suggestion that yes, she be allowed to do that? And in fact, even recommend that she read the current drafts of each of the chapters, because she may look at a draft that we think has a lot more work on it and go, this is great, you're done.
Yeah.
And that way, maybe we can inch this thing forward a little bit faster than we might otherwise think we can. If we're trying to do things that, because we think it's the right thing to do, it may not line up with what she thinks is necessary for the town's plan.
Oh, that's a good comment. And we actually did discuss that briefly.
Okay.
And she said she didn't want to impose anything on the group,
No, we
but
want
she
her to
would make
pause.
suggestions. And I said, we'd welcome the suggestions, however. And I referenced back to the Monomoy process of getting there.
Yeah, I don't think this is necessarily her forcing anything on us. I think if she reviews a chapter and says, the only thing this is missing is X, then we can focus on X.
Right.
And because otherwise we're focusing on X, Y, Z without really knowing if X, Y, and Z are important to the purpose of their plan.
But X, Y, and Z might be important to Madaket's,
Well,
what the Madaket wants it to be. And I did say to her, look, we'll work with you on this, but the bottom line is this area plan is the Madaket area plan, and this is what we want it to look like. And we've got the input based on surveys, hours and days worth of work by the chair people of each chapter. These are at the end of the day, after NPDC looks at it and the plan department looks at it, it's still going to be Madaket's plan. And she said, yes, that's true.
true. But if we're adding stuff that isn't asked for in the plan, in the town's plan, then we're kind of wasting time. And I think
I don't think so, Peter.
you
We
don't think
have
we're
to
not
comply.
adding.
We've got to comply with the state. Can't just say Andrew Vorse said this, so we'll do it, and that's all we have to do.
Yeah,
You
and that's
can't
what
use
happened
that as
to
a crutch.
Monomoy. Yeah,
Can't
that's
use
what
that
happened
as
to Monomoy. Monomoy had like 3 things in that weren't, it was outside of their zone and really not part of the plan. And that's what held them up. So once they removed them, then they approved the plan.
Well, yes, you're right. For a long time, there was a couple of people that were very stubborn about certain issues.
Right. And that group fractured in a couple pieces. So that was, but this I have to be honest, like the Madaket area group has been working really well together. So it's been great. It's positive.
And Peter, I take your comments at heart, because if I'm a chairperson of a complicated chapter like yours are, I don't want to spend a lot of time doing something that's not necessary, even though it's on a topics list. And the topic lists, some are more important than others. You're right. And if we don't have to address one, we won't. But at the end of the day, after your chapter is written, the whole group is going to look at it and make some comments. And I would expect them to be very positive. But I agree with you. There's no sense in wasting time on topics that we don't feel belong in the area plan, even though a survey might have, we sent out 700 copies of the survey. We got a 26 or 7% return. And just because those 27% of the 700 people want X doesn't necessarily mean we need to do it. So we got to filter it.
Another quick question. Part of the thing for me is that not really understanding how our plan, when we send it in, kind of gets merged into the town's plan. Is there, since I have the 2006 Madaket plan, is there an ability to look at the town's 2006 plan to see, here's the Madaket plan, here's the final town plan. Oh, I see what they did. They pulled these pieces and put them over here. Do you know what I'm saying? It's
I'll
difficult
send you
to
the link. I'll send you the link to the
the
last
town plan. Okay,
master plan that the town master plan.
correct.
It's posted online, but I have a copy of it. I think I have a link that, or I have a file that I can send you. And it's not so clear when the town puts their master plan together that this is what Madaket said, this is what Monomoy said, this is what, Tom Never said. They massage it so it's a Nantucket plan, not a Nantucket plan with a Madaket chapter. But I'll send it to you. Let me make a note.
So they're picking pieces out of what we request or we state is important to us, and it gets merged into the full plans.
Yeah, I'm going to assume that, but one thing to remember is that the 2006 master plan that Madaket put together,
Yeah.
it was like the first master plan of all the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And it is probably the most deficient master plan that got produced because there was no guidance as to what to do. It's like when they created the boundary, they picked the old village historic area instead of including a broader area. And I think I sent that out to you guys. This is what's there now. And there's about 10 different descriptions of Madaket floating around. The Board of Health has 2 different descriptions. The harbor plan has a description. There's a whole litany of lists, and we've combined them together. And what we've got, and I did show it to her. I showed it to Megan, and she said, this makes the most sense. The last iteration we had. And when she saw it, she says, we have to bring your boundary to NP and EDC almost immediately because you're going to build on that for the rest of your plan. So let's get your amended boundary, what the former chairperson, Andrew Vorse suggested. Let's run that up the flagpole and make sure you're not working on a proposed boundary that is going to be objected to. So that's kind of why I'm pushing the boundary issue so hard. And I sent out a file, I think yesterday, with all kinds of exhibits to show you what the different boundaries are. The harbor watershed, the Madaket watershed, they're watersheds, but they're 2 different documents. They're 2 different boundaries. So we're going to try to merge everything. But yeah, I think you're onto something, Peter, that we have to understand what they're going to be using our area plan is. And we have to make sure that it's the Madaket area plan that is underlying what they're going to do. But we don't want them to detract from what we're trying to accomplish by saying this won't work. Let's find out first and work it out. All right, so that was the boundary plan, I think. And I don't know what time it is. Good grief. Oh my goodness. It's what, 5 o'clock. Wow, we got a lot done in 1 hour, in less than 1 hour. The next step on the agenda is, Peter, I've got your 2 chapters in there, but I'm not sure we have enough time.
I don't know that there's anything new. They've been posted as in their current format for a couple of months, and I've gotten comments from a number of people, but I don't think we're going to get any more. I'm going to change what we've talked about here, and I've cross-referenced at least 5 with your list of topics, and I think we've hit them all. And then I think I'm, at least for chapter 5, pretty much done. Bruce, I think yours is the final look over to ensure that everything that you think is important to be in there is in there. But can I go back to the Madaket boundary for a second? What do you, so yes, you sent us the document, showed a bunch of boundaries. What is the next step with boundary? To pick one and submit it? Is boundary fall under someone's chapter?
Yes, it's going to fall under number 1.
Oh, okay. So
and then we're going to build on it. And when she saw the documents that I had with the different configurations and showed her how we compiled them into kind of an overview of all of these, combining them so that all of everybody's different boundary descriptions fit into what we've got posing. And that's the document I sent to you.
So is it boundary, not one, I guess two? Or the one that
No.
is sort of the most inclusive? Or is that 6? That's the most, the last one? No, not the last one.
Hold on.
Maybe
No, that's not it. The one that
it might be
we
2.
want to do, let me see which exhibit this is.
If
in.
you
This-
opened exhibit 2, Bruce, you have green and yellow. Green is
Yes, it's
goes
the
all the way
green.
to the Clark Cove, and on the North Shore, just
It's the
50
green
square.
one.
Yeah. So,
That's the what, that's a compilation.
okay. And so that's what you're going to present and say, here's our new Madaket boundary.
Well, I'm going to rely on this group to decide whether we should present that or there's a better idea. So I've sent you this documentation. You know, I included the existing boundary. I got to see which way to go. There we go. That's the existing boundary in red. And you can see the yellow there. That's the historic, old ancient historic Madaket district. And I've sent you, good grief.
Do the neighborhoods that you're trying to include have an ability to say, no, thank you, we don't want to be included?
They do. And one of them said, we don't want to be included in Madaket. But then they said, this is Warren's Landing. Then they said, well, it's important that we participate and be included. So some of them said, we want to be carved out. We don't want anything to do with Madaket. And the other said, no, we want to be included. And we marched on from there. That's been like a 2-year process. They consider themselves a separate homeowners association.
Warren's Landing?
Yeah.
No, Fisher's Landing. Fisher's
Fisher's
Landing.
Fisher's
Landing.
Landing.
Fisher's Landing. So this is what we ended up coming up with.
Yeah.
And we've included the 92 acres of the landfill. But again, that's a conditional inclusion only because when the landfill is capped, the town is thinking of a solar overlay of 92 acres. And the rest of the people from our survey are saying, wait a minute, let's talk about what that's going to look like and how it's going to be. So we want to include that conditionally inside the boundary so that when the landfill closes and capped, now we can discuss what the community wants it to look like. Recreational and solar. Let's see. I mean, solar has fallen apart anyway. It's, you know, it's not the thing of the future. So, you know, I don't want to get into that whole discussion, but those solar panels are full of toxic chemicals. And when they get damaged, those chemicals leak onto the ground and our aquifer is right there. So we want to be careful about what we say and what we're supporting and what we want to make suggestions about. But I think that answers your question. The documents I sent you yesterday, those exhibits, show how we built to the final picture.
Hey,
And
hey, Bruce, can I ask a question? Am I correct that we cannot have a discussion about the boundary? Like, we need to reach consensus on the boundary issue. We cannot discuss that via email, correct? We can only discuss it in an open meeting like today's.
I think that you can post to you can make comments on the Google Drive as a commenter, which you
I see.
all are. So if I post this in chapter 1, you certainly could make comments as an individual. It doesn't require a group discussion.
Okay.
And when it gets to the point, hopefully soon, we could use one of our Zooms to focus only on the boundary.
Good. It just seems like such a centrally important issue that we should,
It
we should
is.
we should
Yeah.
get to consensus quickly.
Yeah,
Plus-
just don't deliberate it. Don't reply to something. Just add your own comments.
Got it.
But I
Got
think
it.
I think it definitely make it. I think this is really important to make it an agenda item.
Yep.
You know, top of the agenda.
And the other thing you can do is you can write me an email. Just don't reply all.
Yeah,
You can
got it.
send it directly to me. And then I can accumulate all the comments and say, this is what we've got.
So, Bruce, the exhibits you sent are just maps and descriptions. I don't
Yes.
see any commentary in there as to the why. Like why is this particular map showing that new Madaket area should look like this versus this?
Well,
I can look at all the maps, but it doesn't
if
help.
you read the narrative in the exhibits,
Yeah.
I outlined in bullet form where it came from. And if you want a more detailed discussion, write me an email and I can write you back. But I haven't pulled these out of my ass. These are things that exist. The Board of Health's 2 or 3 different descriptions of Madaket and its watershed, that's published. That's in the Board of Health's regulations. But all we're doing is assembling the 2 or 3 Board of Healthers into one of the exhibits. And the Nantucket Madaket Harbor Area Plan, that's the NMHAP, they've been very helpful and they've actually done a lot of work on this. The Land and Water Council, they have 4 maps going back to 1990 for the whole island that are very clear about what Madaket is and what the groundwater flow is and how it's harming Madaket because it's flowing from the landfill, which 1990, wasn't capped and we were throwing PFAS stuff in it. So it's all in here, Peter. If you want to have a discussion with me on the different exhibits, I'm happy to do that. That's very important. And I'm looking at the chapter now that has an awful lot of this. It's exhibit. Oh boy. It might be. We have 3 overlay districts. It's exhibit 2. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different Madaket descriptions with maps. And I prepared maps for each one.
Yeah, I've got all of that, Bruce. What am I supposed to do with it?
Look at it and try to understand why it's important to consolidate all of this into one boundary that embraces each one of these, that these fit in. Don't exclude them,
Okay,
but try to merge them together.
that's what you've done in Exhibit 2. The green is all of those boundaries. It's the largest boundary and includes
The
things that
green
we
is
want to
more
have
than that.
control over.
The green is more than that. It's there's 6 exhibits here. This is an aggregation of the 6 exhibits.
Right, that's what I said. So
And
that's
as far as the transportation issues, Mike Burns, the transportation planner for the town, is willing to review our chapter, but I didn't want to send him the original draft until we massaged it into a shape where we want to send it to him. In other words, we don't want him writing the chapter and he doesn't want to. For example, one of the big deals in the surveys is the NERDA bus stops need to have a pull-off. Because when they stop for 4 or 5 minutes loading people, offloading people, putting bicycles in and coolers in, traffic is building up behind them. And then they go to the next stop and the next stop, and all of a sudden the traffic's delayed 20 minutes before it even gets to Cliff Road. So I didn't want to burden Mike with that, but we have to resolve what we want to say in transportation. Do we want bus pull-offs? And the question becomes, where do you put them? So I went up and down the road and I measured, and there's an area between the road and the bike path that's owned by the town that's well wide enough to pull a bus off. So we take a map, we'll circle them, say, we'd like to have turnoffs, pull-offs at these locations. It's a goal. But that's just one idea. Well, we're kind of over our time limit. Does anybody have anything they'd like to comment on chapter 5 or 7? And by the way, Peter, you've done a great job. And I would say that we ought to encourage people to look at the Google Drive and read your latest draft and see if they have comments. I want to go through it with you, Peter, and say, you know, we've got these 11 files or whatever it is. Which ones should we delete? They're no more active. So why leave them up? Clean it out. And the
Yep.
same thing with all the other chapters.
Yeah, we can do that.
I mean, the boundary chapter in chapter 1, the files, I think there's 21 folders in there. So I want to cut it down. And as you can imagine, this is consuming a lot of time for me. And, you know, I get as frustrated as you do, Peter, when I can't get a response or a reaction. But everybody that's on this call has been very good about it, very helpful. But there comes a time when you just say, look, you know, example, you know, Tom Erickson, I know that you don't have a lot of time, you're feeble, whatever it is, you don't want to deal with it. There comes a time when we say, okay, we're not going to wait anymore. We're going to go with what we have. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to talk about? Otherwise, I'd like to schedule our next official meeting for September 12th.
Yep.
12th. It's a Friday at 4 o'clock. And if any of you want to use the offer of a Zoom for your chapter or for some other purpose, a second big group meeting, let me know. We now know that Tuesday is the best for the majority of the group between 3 and 4. So if we're going to have a Zoom for the whole group, I'll ask Megan for Tuesday at 3 to 4. And if you just want to have a Zoom for your committee, maybe you tell me and we'll send a doodle out to just your community. What's good for you guys? Otherwise, I'd be happy to have a motion to adjourn to the Maker's Mark Clinic.
So moved.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, JP.
Second.
Second. All those in favor, please
Aye.
signify me with a hand.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. Joe, thank you for hosting and turning off the AI in the video now, or do I have to do that?
No, once you leave, it should all end. Oh no, I think I can do it now. I think.
Okay.
No, you gotta end the meeting. Sorry.
Okay, we're ending the meeting at this time. It is now 5:12 p.m.
All right. Have a
on
safe
the East
weekend.
Coast.
Take care.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
All good input. I think I owe you guys a lot. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Take care.